As you guys know, I've been working on this engine to put in the Rabbit, but recently I started talking to people who have a bunch of other Volkswagen parts, and a guy offered me a bunch of stuff in trade and for favors, so I got this parts bin and a few other random things here that I will explain a little bit. I don't have a lot going on and it's been super hot, but in the interim of waiting for some of the last few engine things to come, we turn our attention again to sort of aesthetic things, or, well, in a way, a lot of these things are still pertinent to using the car. Let's call them creature comforts. What we have here is the very beat up dashboard from the car. It's missing a lot of pieces. It's got cracks and it's got warping and all kinds of things that are very difficult to fix. So I was hoping to either completely not have the dash at all or possibly upgrade it, and wouldn't you know it, the guy I was talking to had this dash from a later Volkswagen. Think either a Cabriolet or a Jetta. They have the same type of dash, and you see it's much different looking. It doesn't have that little drop down on the side here. It's a better made dash because it's from later, and also it's lighter in comparison. The other one is very bulky and heavy, so we're just gonna do this instead. I do need to find the lid to the glove box and figure out what I'm going to do with all this open space, because I may not use the original fascia that goes in there, but that's where the instrument panel will go, and possibly a radio, some sort of touch screen. All of those are now very, very decent options. I gotta get those vents. I don't know if they're the same size as those. So let's turn our attention now to the shocks and springs over here. Struts, as some people would call them. In a regular setup for any car, there is a shock absorber and a spring, and they basically maintain that your car stay on the road, whether it be because of the way they push down against the ground to make sure you have traction, but then there's also supporting the car so it isn't just bouncing around all the time. They absorb shock. That's in the name. They're a very practical setup because it's all in the same spot, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. It ends up being lighter than the older setup, which is still sometimes used, of having a spring off by itself and a shock absorber concurrent to it, but not built in the same thing. These are together. It makes it simpler. And the same goes for the front. What you hear a lot on the internet is about coilovers. Coilovers, these are both coilovers, but this is a coilover. This is a standard coil over shock, and then this one is what you'd call adjustable. You can use this to adjust the height, and that's how you lower the car. That's not what I've done in the back. These are just sagged because the springs are very old and weak now. But you can also build your own by using one of these sleeves and springs. You have to cut off this perch, and it has to sort of just sit against this, and you want to put sort of a sealant there to make sure it stays on really good. This particular sleeve is too big for my application, or too small for my application, so I might have to look for another set. I've been told I can take this off and just seal this in a different way, because this is just an insert that goes into here. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I may or may not build my own front ones, but I have all these extras to do that with if I want to, and I already have two for the rear. Aside from that, I got a few interesting parts, like a set of aluminum 13-inch wheels, and then I also got this steering rack, which, yes, there's already a steering rack on the car, but this one, these ball joints are not, they seem to be very good. So I may just, I don't know if I'll swap the whole thing, but I'll at least use these ball joints and these bellows, which sort of just cover the moving parts that you don't want them to get like exposed to your normal outside debris and dirt and junk. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can kind of see how that's the one that's on the car, and it's pretty broken. And I just don't know the condition of what's inside there. So, yeah, maybe you can see that, maybe you can't. So that'll get replaced. One last thing. This guy here is one of the front suspension components called a control arm. It attaches to the body on this end, and that's another type of ball joint. That one's a little, like you can see how easy this one, well, it's not as easy to move as I thought. It could still be a usable part. But this is the stamped steel control arm for the Volkswagen Rabbit. And this is a nearly identical looking piece from a Porsche 944. It's made of dense aluminum. So there's a part of me that's like, hey, I could shine these up for bling bling and put them on. But the ball joints for these are not in greatest shape. And these are much more expensive to rebuild than just buying one of these, drilling out these holes and attaching it. So that could be something for later. Mine are a little bent, they're a little rusty. These are in a lot better shape, they're solid, they're just sort of surface rust, and they could be cleaned off and painted, and that would be probably my best bet. Maybe the smart thing to go with. So this is supposed to be a budget build, but I've already done crazy things, and you know, like this wheel, that's completely unnecessary, but I got a deal for it. It's really about the balance between what little I pay for it and how difficult something is to do. Like this thing where I decided to run the wiring underneath the fender so that it doesn't take up as much space under the hood is great. But in the interim, when I'm still trying to get the motor into the car, it's just a little odd to start doing it because I don't even know what my results are yet. But mostly that's what's been going on. It's not as hot of a day. Can't tell if you can see it, but it's a little overcast out here. It's probably gonna rain. There's a little threat of thunder in the background. Of course, it gets really sunny as soon as I mention that. The light just comes way up. Either way, hope you guys are doing good. Here's this really awkward mirror that sits in the garage. Hope you enjoy that. You guys take care. You guys take care of yourself. Don't forget my catchphrase.